Brad Lander had frequently been at that courthouse to offer help to immigrants, to observe the proceedings, to make sure due process was being followed. The immigration courts are dismissing the cases of the immigrants who are showing up for due process. Then the Trump Gestapo, the ICE officers, they wait in the bushes or they wait outside. This was from June 5th, 2025, where Brad Lander explained, I'm going to show you this clip where he was beginning to do these observations. As you heard there, Brad Lander was saying, I'm not obstructing at all.
Unfathomably cruel. That's how Brad Lander described what he saw in court. But when he tried to step in, ICE didn't just ignore him, they dragged him away. What's really happening behind those courthouse doors? We've got the footage. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Imagine going somewhere to help people and walking out in handcuffs. That's exactly what happened to Brad Lander, the NYC Comptroller, during a visit to Manhattan's immigration courthouse.
Donald Trump's goons at ICE just did it again. They physically attacked, accosted, and arrested a prominent Democratic politician, this time in New York City. They attacked and arrested the New York City Comptroller named Brad Lander. Brad Lander's wife just posted the following message. Hi, this is Meg Barnett, Brad's wife. While escorting a defendant out of immigration court at 26 Federal Plaza, Brad was taken by masked agents.
Do you have a judicial warrant? Do you have a judicial warrant? Can I see the judicial warrant? Can I see the warrant? I will let go when you show me the judicial warrant.
His goal? To observe the system and be there for immigrants navigating a process that's already stacked against them. Instead, he found himself targeted by ICE agents in a scene that can only be described as chaos. Lander wasn't just wandering around that day, he was doing what he's done many times before, trying to understand how immigration enforcement impacts real people. This time though, the tables turned when he spotted ICE agents detaining someone and stepped in to ask basic questions. One major question was whether the agents had a judicial warrant, which legally authorizes them to make arrests in such cases. Spoiler alert, they didn't. Instead of answering the comptroller's questions, the agents chose to escalate things. What started as a calm exchange quickly spiraled when Lander refused to back down. Or as the video captured, I'm just here to help.
I just left immigration court proceedings at 290 Broadway where families were coming in for hearings and ICE is making them subject to what's called expedited removal. These are families who have been here for more than a year, who have applied for asylum, and they have a right to have their case heard. But what Donald Trump and ICE are doing now is stripping that right away from them. It's terrifying for the city of New York. It's terrifying for the rule of law. So I thought it was important to show up and see for myself.
Think of this scene like a bad cop show. On one side, Lander, calm and persistent, standing his ground. On the other side, ICE agents visibly tense, avoiding his questions and inching towards him as the tension increased. Lander pushed for transparency, but it was clear ICE wasn't interested in giving it. In fact, when the agents finally detained him, observers, including his wife, Meg Barnett, watched in shock. Speaking later, Barnett called the situation horrifying, a word that sticks because she wasn't there to expect any of this. She was just watching her husband stand up for basic rights. Now, it's easy to assume this was a freak incident, but here's the kicker, it wasn't. Lander himself has long been vocal about immigration policies, calling what he has seen unfathomably cruel.
This is the third time that he has done court watching here, and I have been moved and horrified and found his stories very compelling and wanted to be here with him to witness for myself. I haven't practiced law in a while, but I sure know that what I saw today was not the rule of law. That was not due process. I know, and the way people are being treated is absolutely unacceptable.
A Lander campaign spokesperson has confirmed he was in 26 Federal Plaza to observe immigration hearings involving individuals marked for potential deportation. California senators and New York City comptrollers, how they're treating immigrants when the cameras aren't on. That's why Brad Lander, who's also, by the way, running for mayor in New York, was there assisting the immigrants, just to be by their side.
ICE targeting immigrants right outside courthouse doors, waiting for cases to end so they can pounce, is disturbingly common. Families are ripped apart, often over minor paperwork issues or cases already resolved. Lander's arrest fits into a broader picture of ICE's aggressively unchecked tactics, and that pattern is worth getting into. If this can happen to an elected city official in broad daylight, what's happening when no one's watching? That's the real question behind Brad Lander's arrest, and the answer isn't just alarming, it's infuriating. Let's talk about ICE, their tactics, and the way they're bending the idea of justice into something unrecognizable. Here's the playbook. ICE shows up to courthouses and waits. Sometimes they wait for immigrants whose cases have already been resolved, sometimes for people with no criminal records at all. They're not targeting dangerous criminals like they claim. Instead, families are being torn apart over legal technicalities or even cases that courts have dismissed entirely. Public data backs this up. Most of those detained by ICE have no prior criminal conviction. That's not an accident. It's calculated chaos designed to spread fear. Take the case of a New York City high school student who was tricked by ICE agents. They pretended they were there to help him, only to whisk him away the moment his guard was down. Stories like this draw a stark contrast from ICE's public narrative of being the guardians against crime. Who are they really protecting when a high schooler becomes their target? It's impossible not to think of the families who didn't get headlines, swept away quietly while courts and communities look the other way. Even high-profile figures aren't safe from ICE's heavy-handedness. Look at Senator Alex Padilla from California, who described being handcuffed and forced to the ground just for questioning DHS. Padilla later warned about what happens when there are no cameras, and if they're this bold with public officials, you can only imagine what happens in remote detention centers. Politicians like Zoran Mamdani have said it outright. These actions scream fascism. Greg Casar, a congressman from Texas, called Lander's arrest outrageous. But this outrage isn't just about one moment. It's about a larger strategy. During Trump's administration, immigration policy wasn't just about enforcement. It became a message, loud and authoritarian. His use of the Alien Enemies Act, a relic from the 18th century to deport immigrants, is just one chilling example of policies designed to intimidate and divide. So if this is what ICE does under the spotlight, how far does it really go when the cameras stop rolling? Brad Lander's experience wasn't just a bad day at court. It exposed a system critics say thrives on fear and disregards justice. The numbers don't lie. Most people detained by ICE have no criminal record. Yet enforcement tactics continue to escalate, creating chaos at every level. After his arrest, Lander urged people to step up. Programs like Friends of the Court allow everyday citizens to support vulnerable families and remind authorities that someone is watching. But here's the big question: if even officials are being silenced, what happens to those without a voice? Where does accountability find its place in this system?